I appreciate your kindness. So that's really beautiful, and thank you for saying that. So on the human level, Lisa can recognize that you're saying that she's kind, and that feels beautiful. It feels a bit vulnerable. Like it feels vulnerable because that's a complex one. It's about, you know, putting yourself on the internet and people seeing you, and I know I'm doing it intellectually, but because of the way we're structured, I can't really perceive it. So somebody reflecting back an attribute that I have is a little, you know, that I'm not really seeing and knowing. It's really beautiful on one level, and I love being called kind, but it's also a little vulnerable as well, being seen, I suppose. That's it. Being seen by someone I can't see. So that's how it feels on the human level. And then on the ultimate level, like that place doesn't even know what that means, kindness or not kindness. I know that sounds scary, but consciousness, this perception, this no-thingness, is experiencing without any ability to interpret. It's the mind that interprets. It's the thoughts, it's the personal awareness that constructs all of this reality. But from the place of consciousness, kindness and meanness is irrelevant. That's really weird, eh? But it's not irrelevant like meanness wins or evil wins, that it likes that over that. It's like beyond good and bad. It's beyond evil. It's beyond savior, kindness, all these things. It's watching, and it knows nothing at all. And that can, you know, translate into the person. So sometimes the person, you'll hear non-duality teachers just saying, I don't know, because that also, you know, it does change the person, because the person, you know, is in that experience, and the person, it's being in some way put through the person. But on the absolute level, like consciousness is silently watching with no ball in the game, which makes it absolute unconditioned love, because it has no objective. It doesn't want to be seen as kind. It doesn't want you to pay it money. It doesn't want you to be a good girl or a good boy or do something in order to be loved. And this is the only place in life that this will be experienced, in the instant of this moment. In relationships, there is always, what's that word again? You know, I've forgotten that word. Exchange happening. There is always, I've forgotten the word. You're welcome to comment to remind me of that word. There is always an exchange happening. We like to pretend on the human level that's not happening, but that's just part of the complex social game. Like, you look like the best person in the world if you're innocent and you have no game, but everybody has a game. So on the human level, like the game here, Lisa's motivation for doing this is a love for this subject, a love for speaking about this subject. There's also some form of like camaraderie, I can't say the word, but you know what I mean, like comradeship, in the sense that I'm sharing this with like-minded people, because in everyday life, a lot of people aren't interested. So there is some form of community or comradeship for me as well, to be able to share this with others. And like an attachment security, in the positive sense of the attachment security that therapy talks about. There's in, like, there is a community in which I belong to and share non-duality. Yeah. And there also might be a dynamic in Lisa, which I'm not sure is wholly balanced, is in the Lisa character, there might be a dynamic of wanting to, there might be a footprint of wanting to save people, like wanting to save family members. When I grew up, there was a lot of illness in my childhood, and so it's like wanting to free them from suffering. That might have some balance in it and some beauty, but there might also be some sort of old karma there as well. So what you will like to do to a lot of non-duality teachers, imagine that they have no gain because you desperately want unconditioned love in the humans. The unconditioned love is the consciousness, and this is where you begin to get in dangerous games with non-duality teachers, even if they don't interact with you, because you project the unconditioned love. It's also the unconditioned love that you get from the parent in the first years of love. They love you absolutely unconditionally most of the time, not all the time, but there is that dynamic that's expressed. But so the human projects, okay, Lisa has no game in this, there's nothing in this for Lisa, so she's just doing it for no reason at all, which is absolutely impossible. Everything that's functioning in this world that appears in matter or appears in form has an objective. So it makes no sense, but the mind wants to project it on there because there is some part of you that's always searching for unconditioned love. The unconditioned love is always in this instant. It's always in who you are. It's always in this moment. But the person is endlessly looking in things for that. I used to do it with non-duality teachers. I think this is a reason why, you know, male teachers have a higher female audience and female teachers have a almost higher male audience. So it tends to be more women in spirituality. So I think that I have about half and half. When I do retreats, it's like half women, half men. It's never more men than women. I stop the bookings, or I think about stopping the bookings if it begins to be more men. So I stop taking bookings from men. So it's always half and half, because that's personally. But most of the time I don't have to do that, and it works out half and half. Whereas if you go to a male teacher, it's considered, not all male teachers, but most male teachers, it's really considered normal that they will have more females. There's no question about that. If a woman is having more men, then there's all types of names that she gets called and judgments on her. I mean, that's just part of the sexism of this society. But the reason that happens, I think, is because there is this unconditioned love has a big relationship to falling in love. Because when you fall in love, I think it's one of the most strongest and powerful things that happen to us on the human level, is you stop seeking. So in the moment of falling in love, you stop seeking, and then there is this connection to something bigger than yourself. So when I say you stop seeking, like the character isn't so interested in getting something from this moment or moving to something. It, you know, when you're really in love with someone, like, this is perfect, this is all you want. And lots of people have awakenings in those moments, but then get addicted to the person. So then I think this happens in the teacher. It's like, you know, you get confused between being in love and awakening, because when you are in love with someone, there is this unconditioned love that arises because you're not seeking so much. So there is that involved in it. And then when someone's speaking, there's this messiness that happens. So if you listen to Osho, Wild Country, is that what it's called? You know, the Osho documentary on Netflix, a lot of the people will have said they were in love with Osho as well. So there's this element to it as well, you know, which has all sorts of problems and issues with it. I think it's kind of natural as to what's going to happen. What they do in service yoga, devotion yoga, is they use that falling in love with someone to devote yourself, which has beauty but also has difficulties in it. I can understand that. It's also there in Tantra as well, because there is this closeness between falling in love and the unconditioned love of what you are in this moment. But the teacher always, on the human level, has an objective, so don't get confused by that. The human is not there to love you unconditionally, so Lisa's character isn't there to love you unconditionally. When I do sessions with people, I think it's super important that people pay, but a lot of people see that as immoral, like as a teacher you shouldn't take money, because they're getting confused with unconditioned love. But it's super important so that the person on the other end understands that there's an exchange, that the teacher is also receiving something for their work. But it's very difficult for the person who wants the teacher to be this unconditioned love to accept that, because it's not, there's another part in you that's seeking for unconditioned love in a person. In a person. I can speak and speak and speak, can't I? I love this subject. I love it. It saved my life. And I'm sure it saved lots and lots and lots of people's lives out there. Yeah.